Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So we have covered some good Batman miniseries from DC's Black Label comic line, but now that we've finished First Night and there are so many delays between each issue of Gargoyle of Gotham, I felt like it was time to start up a new Batman series to cover here on the channel. I actually asked you guys in a community poll which Batman story you'd like to see, and there was a lot of great feedback, a lot of input, but the overwhelming majority of you decided on Batman the Imposter. And yeah, if you haven't been paying attention to the community polls on my channel, we're constantly throwing stuff up over there, so go ahead and check that out, because every once in a while you'll get to vote on videos exactly like this. Now, I think what's cool about Batman the Imposter in comparison to the others that we've done on this channel is that First Night and Gargoyle of Gotham were very similar and very familiar. You know, they were both good early Batman stories, with Jim Gordon and Batman working side by side to face villains that we've never seen before, with the overall narrative of both of those stories focusing on Bruce Wayne trying to find some personal meaning in the Batman mantle. What this story does instead, as an alternative, is it removes Gordon from the equation entirely and has everyone else trying to figure out what the Batman stands for and questioning his motives and his purpose for reasons that we'll get into here in a minute. So this story actually starts off with an injured, unconscious Batman who has broken into the home office of Leslie Tompkins. Now, if you don't know the character of Leslie Tompkins, don't worry, you just need to know how she fits into this story. And in the context of this story, she was the psychiatrist who was assigned to Bruce Wayne during his childhood following the death of his parents. So a little while after Leslie finds Batman, we see Bruce actually regain consciousness, patched up, sitting in a chair in a dark room, and hears Leslie say, "Hello, Bruce." "Hello, Leslie." "Dr. Tompkins. I'm a sucker for formality," she says. "You're welcome, by the way." "For what?" "For keeping you alive, stitching you back together, for not calling the police and telling them that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Shall I continue?" Or Bruce says nothing. And you'll notice throughout these panels that this version of Bruce looks strikingly similar to Robert Pattinson's Batman in the recent movie. And for those of you who saw my video on Joker Year One, you would know that this is the exact same artist, Andrea Sorrentino, who is great. He's an industry legend. And the one thing that you'll notice, he loves, and I mean loves, to make his Batman look like their movie counterparts. So in that story, it was a future dystopian disheveled Batman, so he made him look like Ben Affleck's Batman. So with this version of Bruce Wayne looking like Robert Pattinson, we can reasonably assume that this is still pretty early in Batman's career. Bruce gets up from the chair. "Where are my clothes?" When you say clothes, you mean the Bat costume you wear to assault people in the street every night? Where are they? "Sit down and tell me what happened to you." "And why would I do that?" Bruce says. "Because if you can't reasonably argue why you don't need psychiatric help, I am going to tell the world Bruce Wayne is Batman, and it'll be for your own good." Bruce then suddenly stops in his tracks and starts telling the story. It was a relatively quiet night. We then see a robber holding a gas station clerk at gunpoint. "You want to lose your face? Hurry it up. Are you deaf or something?" We then see Batman himself standing right behind him. He gives him a left hook, shoves his face right into the counter, giving him a bloody nose and probably more, before we hear another gunshot by the second man on the job. As the clerk is dying, the gunman starts shooting Batman even more, missing almost every shot. Batman jumps over the counter to help the clerk. I don't want to die." "Quiet. Keep pressure on it." The gunman then grabs another hostage. Batman then throws a batarang, misses, and then very stupidly, the gunman lets go of the kid, reloads the gun, and starts firing away again. Batman jumps straight through the glass, and the thieves take that as their opportunity to run. They then stop someone in their car, hold him at gunpoint, and shove him out, GTA style. But as they're driving off, they realize that Batman's still after him. He quickly catches up to him, throws a smoke grenade inside, and forces them to crash, sending the car rolling and ending up upside down. He drags one of them out of the car, breaks his arm, and then his knee, before suddenly feeling a sharp rush of pain and realizing that he's been stabbed in the side by the second guy. He pulls the knife out, cuts him across the face, and knowing that the police will round him up, he flees the scene. "So you came here to die, or for help?" Leslie says. "Either one would have suited me fine," he answers. "Bruce, how did this happen to you?" "Nothing happened to me. This wasn't some unfortunate side effect. This was a choice, a vow." "What the hell are you talking about?" "Bruce, I say this as a psychotherapist. You sound insane. You need psychological help. You're putting yourself and hundreds of other people at risk. You've helped enough." "Bruce, you're a Wayne, goddammit. You want to fight crime in Gotham? Start a fucking foundation. Run for mayor. Run for president." "Goodbye, Leslie. If you walk out the door, I am calling the police. You want to test me? Go ahead. You'll be shot or locked up in Arkham in 6 hours. What do you want? Explain to me why." And he drops his head and says, "Because I'm making a difference." We then get a short flashback to Batman overlooking the city saying, "Last week, Gotham had its first night with zero violent crimes in 54 years." And we get a close-up of Batman shedding a tear, looking at what he's accomplished. That didn't happen because of the cops. It's not because of the mayor or the DA. It's not because Gotham suddenly grew a conscience. It's because of me. That may be, but that doesn't mean you're not a danger to yourself. Here, you're my patient now, she says. I can't break confidentiality unless I think there's an imminent threat to your life or someone else's. Every morning at dawn, you will come to this office and we will talk about what you're doing. We will help you together. And if you don't show up, I will call the police. So I kind of like this angle because you have someone that's there for Batman in a way where they're not a pushover. You know, someone that's just gonna be friendly and help him, but like let him do his own thing. She's not gonna sit here and enable him. Instead, she's almost kind of annoying with it, how stubborn she is about like, I want to help you because there is genuinely something wrong with you. And she's like so insistent about it, but that kind of makes you wonder, if they knew each other from when he was a child, why does she feel so strongly about helping him with his mental state? Why is she so adamant on fixing it, right? Because it's not just because she's a psychiatrist. No, there's more to it, and we will dig into that later. We then jump to the building of a company by the name of Wesker, where a young police detective is investigating a break-in by who the security of that company believes is Batman. They show her on the security cameras. Stop. There, him. He's not a construction worker on our payroll. The others kind of just assumed he was a new hire. He worked alongside them for 3 days, hiding in plain sight. We think he copied one of the key cards of the construction crew members. She then goes and talks to Mr. Wesker, the CEO of the company, who says, I want to know what you're doing about the Batman problem. She says, I appreciate that you're a concerned citizen, Mr. Wesker, but I'm not at liberty to discuss an open, and he cuts her off. This company, which I built from the ground up, annually pumps $23 billion into Gotham's economy. I'm glad you appreciate my concern, detective, but I am not a concerned citizen. I am Gotham. She stops for a moment and says, I speak for everyone in the department when I say that your reputation as a pillar of the community is unquestionable. We appreciate all you've done for Gotham, including, as I'm sure you were about to remind me, the substantial contributions to the GCPD pension fund. Despite this, I'm sorry to say, you are not Gotham City. You are a private citizen, and in order to ensure that the eventual charges brought to the Batman stick, I will not discuss this case with you. He's bad for business, Mr. Wesker says, and not just mine. I know the Sionis family is considering moving their firm out of Gotham entirely if this continues. And Wayne Enterprises, well, they certainly didn't need Batman blowing up one of their buildings last year. My point, detective, is that everyone's focused on Batman's war, on the crazies and the criminals, making the police look like fools. And yes, it sells newspaper, and I can appreciate that. I own some of them. But how long do you think it could go on for before the people with power decide to do something about it? Do we understand each other? He says. Have a nice day, Mr. Wesker, she responds, walking out the door. You know, rumor has it you're a stellar detective, Miss Wong. We're all rooting for you here. And she looks back at him, realizing that that was a threat. And as she's leaving, she starts to consider everything he said in that conversation and starts looking at the idea of Batman in an entirely new light. What if he's not some vigilante concerned with stopping criminals or protecting the city or keeping people safe? What if he is a kind of corporate weapon in the form of a vigilante? If the Batman's presence is having the kind of economic consequences that Mr. Wesker claims, that's an angle that hasn't been explored yet. A guy in a batsuit beating up street criminals always felt like it was a bit much. But if it's all designed to conceal some kind of corporate espionage, crash a helicopter into a Wesker warehouse, explosions on the docks, those break-ins at the chemical factories, I have to go through all the files again, start looking for patterns on the corporate angle. Think about how many insurance claims these companies could file if it was all just some form of self-sabotage. Who lost the most because of the Batman? Who gains the most by putting the Batman on payroll? Maybe they can take out the competition through him. When you think about the facts of Batman, you come up with male, somewhere between 20 to 40, fair complexion, possible military training, but not necessarily. There's always kind of been an underlying infrastructure that points towards an access to wealth, and her thoughts get cut off by someone yelling at her, Wong, get your ass in here. We've already started. She says, no one told me there was a briefing. This is moving fast. We're then taken into an office where a bunch of detectives are on the case. This footage was taken last night on a rooftop off of 75th Street. He brought them all up together, blindfolded and tied, kept them on their knees for about 2 minutes, and we watch Batman as he kicks people right off the roof. Where'd this footage come from, Captain? Someone asks. A private network, he says. Wesker Capital offered up the footage. Detective Wong starts thinking about her conversation with Wesker. We then get a look into Detective Wong's mind as she tries to break down who the Batman is and get closer to stopping him. Alright, she says, let's think about what we really know about Batman. He arrived on the scene 3 years ago, seemingly out of nowhere. We spent 6 months answering calls about a giant vampire flying around, breaking people's knees. I was convinced someone spiked the drinking water again. The criminals who meet him say he's invincible. Shoot him and he gets back up. He disappears into thin air, reappears on the other side of the city, impossibly fast. From the looks I've gotten, he's heavily armored. His outfit must weigh 100 pounds. Shoot him and he gets back up. Constant municipal complaints of a shifting network of zip lines popping up across the city. I haven't been able to prove it, but I'm 99% sure it's him. Last year I came across records of impounded motorcycles. I've tracked down 12 so far. Each bike identical, VINs filed off, full tank of gas with air in the tires. They weren't abandoned, they were hidden all across the city. And those are just the ones we've found. He disappears into thin air, reappears on the other side of the city impossibly fast. Maybe a network of motorcycles? Hidden routes, maybe? 12 motorcycles aren't cheap. Neither are the steel zipline cords. Maybe he's military, but he definitely has wealth, or access to it. The wealth angle, and now the murder angle, it doesn't quite line up for me yet. And we can just see how close she is. She's so close. When you actually have a well-written detective like this, who's like actively putting their brain to use, and actually comes off like they have experience, it's really, really cool how quickly they're kind of on to Batman. We then cut to Leslie Tompkins the next morning at 5 a.m. still waiting for Bruce to show up. I'll give him 5 more minutes before dialing 911 and saying, damn you, Bruce, before hearing a door creak. Cutting it a little close, aren't you? She holds up a newspaper that says Batman kills. Is it true? I thought you knew my profile, he says. Take off the mask. I'm not speaking to you like this. Better? What happened, Bruce? There's an imposter. Someone's out there pretending to be Batman. It's a brilliant setup. Hide behind my mask. Leave me the blame for a killing spree. Even if I find him and stop him, it's impossible to prove who did what. There's no going back now. Do you have any leads? She says. I've been asking around. We then get this collage of Batman just beating the shit out of people. Low-level gangs, all the way to villains like Penguin, and still finding nothing. The police have tolerated you because in some ways you made their jobs easier, Leslie says. If they believe you're crossing this line, that justification goes out the window. You can't be feared as a murderer and enjoy the same leniency from the GCPD. You must be able to see that, she says. I'll stop him, he says. Do it quickly, Bruce. You're running out of time. We then get another detective breakdown, but this time we get to see it spliced between Detective Wong and Bruce himself. Wong looks over the case and thinks to herself, so, what do I know? The murder development is just an escalation. The Batman's presence is hitting the elite. Is that a hidden motive, or just an inevitable byproduct? I've now found records of potentially 20 motorcycles that have been found and impounded. No one's reported anything stolen, which means they've been bought. $65,000 a pop. That's $1.3 million lying on the street. That suggests access to serious spending money. She thinks about Mr. Wesker again. Gotham has its fair share of rich psychopaths. Maybe it's time to knock on some doors. And then we get Bruce's breakdown. So, what do I know? He thinks to himself. The victims are all convicted criminals. All of them know how to handle themselves. The imposter managed to get them onto the roof unnoticed. He was also clever enough to stay out of sight until he wanted to be seen. Combine those two facts, and that tells me he's tactical, possibly military. Personal vendetta against these 3 victims? Is this someone who is finishing something, or just getting started? We then go back to Detective Wong. The first step is to identify who's losing the most because of the Batman. That means getting records. Most of them won't be public. I expect to have a lot of doors slammed in my face. Just like Batman, she visits the Penguin, who gives her nothing. She visits Black Mask, who gives her nothing. She goes to Mr. Wesker again, who gives her nothing. We then go back to Bruce, looking over the evidence. The first step is to see what connects the victims. They weren't cellmates, didn't travel in the same circles. They didn't live even remotely close to each other in Gotham. If he kills again, I'll have more data. But if he kills again, the cops will come harder. If he has a longer hit list, he's got until they capture me or kill me to keep himself hidden. And there's always the chance that the GCPD catches him first. He hears a knock at the door, and when he goes to see who it is, he sees that it's Detective Wong herself. Hi, Mr. Wayne. I'm Detective Blair Wong. I was wondering if you had a minute to talk about the Batman. And that's where it ends. So, very, very good miniseries. Love the art, love the vision, love the breakdown from both of these detectives, love the uniqueness of the story and the direction that it's going in. So, if you want to see more of this, you want me to continue the series, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, that is the video. Thank you for watching.